Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kelly Abbott. I'm the Center of Excellence Lead for Time and Benefits here at Rising. And joining me today is Mr. Tim McAlpine, who is our Center of Excellence Lead of Operations. Thank you for being with me today and spending time to talk about the SuccessFactors H1 2022 release notes. Today, we're going to talk about Time Tracker and all of the fancy stuff that is being released this particular season around the support of Time Tracker. Being a new module, a lot of stuff that is coming out is utility in nature. A lot of stepping stones are still coming out for this particular module, but exciting stuff nonetheless as it continues to develop and be optimized for a brand new time module as it continues to try to produce a time management system in the cloud for SuccessFactors. So thank you for being here and thank you for supporting this particular module with me today. All right, let's get into it. So the first thing we want to talk about is replication. So in this particular release, brand new to Time Tracker, is they've produced a replication to SAP ERP. So brand new.
Yep. Early adoption. Exactly. So it's definitely something that is needed. And it is something that has to be requested. Specifically as an early adoption, you will be testing it out as you go. So it's not something that will have 100% of its features available from day dot. That's why it's in early adoption currently. But it is definitely something that customers will want to pursue and take a look at. Being able to replicate this information to ERP is obviously going to be a big win for this.
No doubt.
And what that includes is your quotas and your time account information. So right now you can do your job information, your work schedules, etc., and your absence, time off. But what this will include is your time account information and your quotas replicating directly. So that's a big plus there.
That's a big stepping stone.
Mm-hmm.
One of the bigger.
And then as they go, it will obviously get expanded upon. I believe they're also trying to put in payouts as well as potentially country-specific info types and things like attendances and substitutions.
Eventually. So that'll be exciting when it's all built. So soon to come, early adopter. Like you said, it's got to be requested in order to get it turned on. So more to come.
Stay tuned. Exactly. Yep. The next big thing, there's been a lot of functionality improvements to the clock in, clock out feature. There were a number of items in the list that were some of the quality of life improvements. So that would include things like translating the pay codes into different languages. So you'll be able to do that now and be able to see that in the language of choice. There are also some functionality updates. One of the big ones is around the role-based permissions. So clock in, clock out roles are now no longer separated into its own section. They will be using your existing time roles within the system.
That was a big one. Geocaching capture is now available when you're using mobile. So for those organizations that want to know where their folks are at the time, whether they're out clocking in and clocking out on their mobile, making sure that they're actually at work and not at Starbucks. They're going to be able to pull that up and know exactly where they're at with that flag drop to have those geolocations that capture when their locator is on their mobile phone. So that is now available. So that's a big win when using the clock in, clock out functionality on the mobile phone. So that and the Latecomer notification. So that ability to use evaluating clock times and clock in, clock out versus a group order within time evaluation is now available. So that's a pretty big piece of information.
Yeah, especially since the previous version, you could only do time segments rather than the individual time slices. So it's definitely something that will get utilized, and definitely something you want to take a look at.
This is one of those places where I see it being a, it seems like a very small thing, right? But it's one of those components that really checks the box that will check many more boxes, right? So it's kind of like that first piece of time slice that creates all the other pieces of time slice, that makes those other pieces of capability come into play. So
yeah, exactly.
This is a pretty good, this is a very nice one.
And then the last thing around the clock in, clock out was around that employee full synchronization job. Previously, it was only enabled in provisioning and had to be used by production support or something like that to trigger, is now available through an object within the system. So it doesn't have to be provisioning anymore. It's through the UI now.
Lots of good stuff. Lots of good stuff. Okay, so let's talk about, while they're improving quality of life, let's talk about the Timesheet UI. That got a big facelift.
Yep, definitely. Being able to see your the labels of the time types instead of just the external codes is a big difference. Just to being able to read it, the visibility and the interpretive nature of the timesheet is a lot more easy to read and easy to use, along with the being able to control your create and delete buttons. When somebody doesn't have access to manage that timesheet, those buttons are now disabled rather than being always enabled, and then producing a response from there.
Agreed. The last bit of that is they've added allowances, made allowances available in decimals. So no longer is the whole number just the only thing that you have available to you. Being able to produce those allowances in tenths and wholes and halves and quarters and all of the fractions, all of those are now available and able to be tracked and traced in the denominations for which they were accumulated. So really helpful in the accrual department and for tracking work time, and especially with the auto, right? So in those companies that have those car and those automobile programs, and how many car miles do you drive and how many miles are you collecting and tracking within the tool. Those are always done all the way to the 10th of the mile. And so now they can track them literally to the 10th of the mile. So that's going to be a big win for those organizations.
And then I think the last thing that we want to cover is sort of, it's almost like a piggyback as well. The notifications within the system. Whenever you have a notification on the system, you either have, right now, it's set to an error, which will stop processing. Whereas now they've implemented a warning system, which enables them to warn without preventing any processing. And piggybacking on some of the clock in, clock out functionality, things like somebody being a late starter, what we mentioned before is one of the features that was done as well. You can put in a warning to say, after 3 or 4 times there's been a late start, you can warn the employee, comes up on the UI, and it also comes through the admin alerts as well. So, but it doesn't prevent the processing of that data as previously it was in the notification as an error.
That's right. Usually warnings are created, we call these notification warnings or exception warnings. These are triggered and created to trigger in order usually to curb behavior. So anytime that you see that something could be going in a certain track that you want to correct, you would normally create these. And they could be created in order to track or curb overtime or operational things where the organization might have a need in order to curb overtime, or in order to curb folks that are late starters. in your example, right? Or folks that work on Saturdays or Sundays, or whatever the need may be. There's a huge influx for people to call in the day before a statutory holiday, things that you might want to keep an eye out for. So things like that. So those warnings are a great way to kind of flag to supervisors, you might need to keep an eye out, but don't stop work. So error messages always stop work. They literally cause work to stop, but now you have the opportunity to flag supervisors and managers to behavior or to processes that need alerts without stopping work. So it's a great improvement that's coming out for this May for this H1 release. So good stuff. A lot of utility in this one, which is needed, right? So we would never bucket utility that's coming out. It's necessary, and especially in a new module. It's going to happen more and more as it bolsters and as the tool is used more often. Things are going to get corrected and expanded, rightfully so. Those legs have got to get stronger for the module to get bigger. So we're looking forward to seeing all the new stuff that's going to continue to be rolled out, and the new flexibility that is going to continue to be rolled with it.
Exactly, and a lot of these improvements have come about based on customer community ideas and functionality that people are really requesting. So it's always a good idea to make sure that you communicate this sort of thing through the customer portal and get that demand up.
They pay attention to those communities, a lot of attention, and the more people that go out and like your idea in that community, the more chance that you have to commit the change. So if you can rally a troop behind you, it's never a bad idea. So thank you for joining me today and chatting these things through with me. I will see you back at H2 to see what other exciting things are on the horizon on the next release. So have a great day. See you back soon.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye.